Hey guys, welcome to week 6 of Mpai 5600 here at Georgetown University. Announcements, we'll do the Capital Terrain Walk. Again, 2 people said they were interested. In today's Zoom, in today's announcements, when you acknowledge the announcement, let me know if you guys are still interested. If it's 2 people, we'll do it. If it's less than 2, we won't. But we're going to do that on June 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Grant Memorial. Please, again, acknowledge if you're still interested in going in person, and if you want to do it on Zoom, we'll just have one person hold up their phone, and we'll Zoom you in that way. And I'll send Zoom link and videos in a separate announcement. So the paper, the strategy paper, it was going to be due on the 29th. I'm going to push it to the 6th. I'll give you a lot more guidance in this announcements, but I suggest you go ahead and read on that. Get thinking what you're going to do, answer questions this week, and then write your paper next week. So I'm giving you 2 weeks on this. Should be plenty of time. If there's issues, let me know. So review of last week. So Iraq WMD. Again, there's failures all across the spectrum. There was collection failures. Again, over-reliance on a human asset, the curveball asset. There were analytical failures. Again, many of you posted groupthink, confirmation bias, negative evidence bias. All those issues that came up were relevant in the Iraq WMD case study. You can make the argument there's organizational failures, that raw information was collected, but it shot up without being analyzed properly to senior officials in the administration. And then the policy interface. Was there politicization? Did that affect intelligence? That's something for you to argue in your paper going forward. And I bring Iraq WMD up because I think everyone's aware of what's going on in the news and the strike on Fordo in Iran and other sites. And the question is, how close was Iran getting to a nuclear weapon? What was the intel saying? Was that intelligence properly collected and analyzed? Are we repeating some of these lessons people are arguing that we did with Iraq WMD? So, this isn't just abstract, for the classroom. This is real-world consequences. So 9/11, again, was 9/11 intelligence failure? You can make the argument it wasn't. Not everything bad that was is an intelligence failure, or everything bad that happens is an intelligence failure. However, again, the fact that we knew about the 2 of the hijackers, we had information, they were on watch lists, and yet we couldn't unravel the plot, I think, is the largest failure. Again, the National Geographic, or one of the documentaries talked about or the doll, I should say, bin Laden determined to attack in the United States. I'll let you ask, but that was, again, I think that's, a little bit of vague intelligence for, policymakers to act on. Organizational analysis. Again, the NSA documentary brings this up. NSA had collected information, but it wasn't shared with people that could do something. That's an organizational failure. We had enough information. We were actively collecting, but for bureaucratic reasons, classification reasons, we didn't share it with the FBI or in the San Diego police that could have done something. And then, where along the chain could we have stopped it? That's just something to look as you're reading the doll and you're looking at future case studies. Was there enough information, at the interagency level, but also was there enough information shared from federal, state, local levels? And we've spent lots of money on fusion centers to solve that problem, but again, I ask, is that being effective? And that was one of the recommendations from the 9/11 Commission. So, paper 2. Paper 2 is due again in 2 weeks. And what I'm looking for is a strategic paper that looks at the case studies that we talked about. If you want to do another case study, start thinking about it now and get it approved by me like in the next couple of days. Otherwise, just focus on the case studies we talked about earlier. What I'll also allow you to do is if you want to choose an intelligence issue that weaved its way through multiple case studies. So, confirmation bias was impacted in several areas. And if you want to focus on that in depth and how analysts failed and what were the problems, then yes, you can focus on that. So again, what I don't want is a laundry list. Do not tell me, okay, here are all the failures in collection, here are all the failures in analysis, here are all the failures in policy. I want you to focus on one or two issues and go in depth. I say it again, go on one or two issues and go in depth. Do not get right to your analytical product. Do not give me, here are 15 reasons why 9/11 happened, or here are 12 reasons why Iraq WMD happened. Focus on one or two and make your argument. So if you want to focus, again, some of the examples, if you want to look at collection, Pearl Harbor, we talked about the failure to identify the 6 Japanese carriers. Yom Kippur War, we talked about the failure or the over-reliance on human sources. In the Iraq War, we just talked about how curveball led itself to poor human and poor collection practices. Failures in analysis. Again, Pearl Harbor, we talked about everything from confirmation bias to racism and how that impacted that failure. The confessions, again, for that case study, we talked about negative evidence bias, confirmation bias, vividness bias, all failures in analytical capabilities. Iraq WMD, again, groupthink. There was a forced consensus that many analysts and policymakers suffered through that led to the failure in that respect. And then politicization, Iraq WMD, again, we talked about it in depth. The Maddow documentary covers it. Others areas covered it too. Was intelligence politicized? Again, you can make that argument. Hey, the primary failure was caused by politicization. You can go in detail. The confessions. There's obviously pressure to get those convictions. And then 9/11, again, the argument is that all the information, was not briefed at the policy maker level for them to make a decision, and the DAL covers that in detail. There's organizational failures. There's the 9/11, the NSA documentary. That covered, again, information was collected in different areas, but it was not briefed to people that can make different decisions. There was Pearl Harbor. Information was collected at the federal level, but it wasn't shared to the commanders on the ground that could have made a difference. And then the fusion centers, again, this is designed to mitigate the organizational failures, but again, information wasn't being pushed down to the lowest level. So I'm not going to give you the paper here, but I am going to give you this guidance, and I'll also just say, you got to tell me, like I've talked about in class, okay, what could have been done? If you're going to talk about the Yom Kippur War and say, hey, there's a failure in human, well, if the information was correct, what reasonable decisions could have been made that could have mitigated risk? And I want that brought in the paper as well. So I've given you guidance here. I'm not going to give you an example paper, but I think I've given you enough guidance that the next 2 weeks you can go ahead and move out on this. And if there's questions or issues, again, just like for the last paper, feel free to reach out to me. So week 6, so again, we can't, because it's a summer session, you can't just focus on your paper the whole week. You have to this week is on counterterrorism, specifically Islamic counterterrorism. We're going to look at Fort Hood, underwear bomber, Boston, EU. I do not want this part of your paper, focus on the discussion sections, but this will be part of your next paper that you start considering towards the end of the year. The readings of Fort Hood shooting, the Boston Marathon bombing, and then the documentaries, great documentaries. And the question I want you to think about as you're going through it, why do we still have these failures? Despite the billions, trillions, depending on how you count it, that we've spent, we still have these significant intelligence failures going forward, and why do we have them? So that's week 6. If there's questions or issues, let me know, and I look forward to your to get the collection papers back to you, and if there's any other issues, let me know.